As I've told you before, I'm not a vet. I'm a veterinary business advisor. I've been working in the veterinary clinics for more than 20 years. Now, some of our guests will see the dragon, and they'll know that the year of the dragon was 20 years ago. That's why it's there. Okay, but I understand how vet clinics function. So my background is managing people and organizations. I can't make a sick cat well again. It's not what I do. Okay? But what I can do is I understand what motivates people to act. And that's what I like about this topic we're going to talk about. So, let's start at the beginning. What do pet owners really want? Well, who here is a pet owner? Okay, if you're a pet owner, stand up. Come on, let's so we can all see you. Stand up if you own a pet at home, if you've left one behind. Now look around you. Say hello to your fellow pet parents. Okay, so this question, what do pet owners really want? You can sit down now, guys. Are you okay? What do pet owners really want? We all know the answer to that, don't we? Because we're all pet owners. This is not difficult, Mark. Okay, and what do pet owners really want? How many of you that own a pet want your pet to be ill? Put your hand up. None, okay? How many of you who own a pet want your pet to be well? All of us. Okay. So what we know is that pet owners want a happy and healthy pet. They also need to get it fixed quickly if it gets unwell. But they don't want that, do they? They want it well. I've seen lots of studies, but what makes a healthy pet? There's different models, but they all look something like this. We talk about the need for a suitable diet. I can't imagine why I put that one first. But something in my mind just said, put it first, Mark, put it first. We know they need appropriate exercise and stimulation. We know they need protection from known diseases, depending on where you are in the world. That will vary and differ, even within countries from region to region. We know we need to control parasites, and again, they vary from country to country and region to region. And we know there are some treatments that we would recommend because they can help in the long term, whether it's dental investigations, whether it's neutering, whatever it happens to be. But there's a bunch of stuff that we like to do because we think it's good for the long-term health. And what we result is a healthy pet. Now, here's the question. Is there any of that that you don't provide in your clinic today? Or if you don't provide it, you provide it by support and guidance that you make available to your clients. Any of that you don't do? No, Mark. We do all of it, don't we? So, with our knowledge and experience, are we not best placed to make a healthy pet? Are we not better than any pet shop could be? Of course we are. Are we not better than any online provider could be? Of course we are. Because we do all that. That's what we do. So, why is it that when we look at studies, and I've seen studies in different countries, but they're all pretty much the same, about 80% of what the client spends on average on their pet is spent keeping it well. Principally food. Typically, the average veterinary practice gets from the average patient about 25% of what the statistics show in a marketplace that client spends on their pet. So we've got 80% of the spend on wellness, but only 25% of the spend coming to us. But you've all just told me we're the best place for it. Aren't we? So why hasn't it all found its way to our door? Because that's the question. We know what it is. We know how to do it. We're best placed to do it. We've got more emotional attachment to doing it than anybody else that can provide the industry. We're better placed to do it, but clients haven't come to us. That's where we sit today, isn't it? It's the cold, hard facts. We need to look at why that is. Well, typically, one figure I always look at when I work with a practice is what proportion of their income comes from wellness-related activities. So things like parasite control, flea control, dental work, neutering, any other preventative treatment you want to include. But the wellness stuff, typically it's quite a small percentage, which means 80% of our income comes from the illness stuff. So why is that? Why are we so focused on illness? Well, Mark, it's because it's what we do, isn't it? We've invested time and energy and money in our veterinary training. We're proud of our qualification. It wasn't easily won. You worked blooming hard for it. You've continued to invest in your veterinary training. You're here today, investing in your veterinary training. You bought all those toys. Oh, sorry, specialist equipment and facilities. But they're toys, they're great fun, aren't we? Financial justification, well, we do some of it. Well, how many times are you going to use this bit of kit? Oh, sometimes. Doesn't matter, it's a great bit of kit. Look, it does this, you know? It's what we're like, isn't it? And of course, we tend to recruit people who are just like us. So other people that love playing with the toys. And what does that create? It creates an organization that's focused on illness. That's what our passion becomes. It's what excites us in the morning. We go home. We don't go home saying, I saw 100 pets today, and do you know what? They were all well. We go home saying, God, you should have seen what I got today. I got a no. And I had to do this, and then I do that, and tomorrow we're going to have it back in, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. Wow, this is exciting stuff. This is what I did it all for. But the problem is, as human beings, we're not very good at hiding our emotions. So if you create an organization that excites itself on illness, that will transmit to your clients. It transmits by what you do. You give clients the impression it's what you're there for. I've done lots of training with reception staff and front of house staff. And when you talk to them, why don't clients ring up when their pet's ill? Well, we didn't think it was serious enough to bother the vet with. We've somehow given them the impression that it would be a problem if it wasn't really ill. Because we get excited when it is. We look bored when it's not. So we create it by how we look. How much of the money is being spent on the front of the house and the client services? How much is being spent on the toys and the facilities at the back? I've been into veterinary clinics where the front of the house is awful, but you walk through that door and it's like you've stepped onto a movie set. It glistens and gleams. Or I've walked up the steps where clients have to go and I pass a food preparation area and I pass something else and a bit that, I don't know what it did, but nobody ever cleaned it because it sat there unused for a while. And then you pop round the corner and there's this little cube sat there all shiny in steel and glass. And inside, oh, what wonders are inside. We spent all the money on the technical stuff. Nothing on the bit the client interfaces with. And by what we say. How do our staff react? We've heard a lot over this day and a half about, how millennials, how our clients of the future interact with us on lots of different levels. Every touch point has to feel right. What do the response they get? Does it suggest we're open for wellness? Or does it suggest it's all about illness in terms of what we do? And often the services we offer reflect that. What do I see in your waiting room? What do I see on the front page of your website? What sits front and center that tells me what you're about? So, in 20 years, I've visited, I think, more than 1,000 veterinary clinics in more than 10 countries. Big ones, little ones, corporate groups, individual groups, unique independents. I've seen them all. So which veterinary clinic has impressed me the most? in those 20 years. And what was it that impressed me about this clinic so much that I wanted to share their story with you today? With their permission, I should add, that we've done it. It's a veterinary clinic that is very focused on wellness. It's actually called Vet for Life. It's now part of the Mars Group, but it wasn't when I was working with it. Last year, the owner sold to Linnaeus, and Linnaeus was instantly bought by Mars, so it's part of the Mars Group. But they bought it because of what it does. It's focused on wellness, but deals with illness very well too. And we mustn't forget that bit as you hear me talk today. It's a place where well pets are made to feel welcome. Does that look like the front end of a hospital to you? No. It's meant to look like the park, because that's where well pets go. This is a clinic where they want you to bring your well pet. Your well pet is welcome in this clinic. It's what they do. They say hello to well pets. Doesn't matter if you need to buy anything. Doesn't matter if you're just walking through on the way to the park. They're always pleased to see you. But they'll check to see if you've got any concerns or issues, or need any advice or support, and possibly that might lead to selling you a service or a product. But you'll always feel welcome. In the original design, just on this corner here, by the box, there's a signpost that said, "To the park and to the river." But everyone pointed out that was not a good idea. Putting a post in a veterinary reception was not a good idea. And so it's screwed to the wall, actually, just round the corner. But you see, it looks and feels different. And it looks and feels different for every client too. It says, "Hello, welcome." It's a place where promoting healthcare comes first. Their monthly payment plan, they called Vet for Life Family. Come and join our family. We'll help your well pet stay well, because that's what the family plan does. It's the first page on their website, front and center. But out the back, they've got all the toys. It's a highly equipped veterinary surgery with some very excellent veterinary surgeons sat and working within the group. They do the illness stuff really well, but they do the wellness stuff even better. Here's the owner. Oh, I should have changed that slide. It's supposed to say founder, Ian. Ian's passionate about wellness, so he wrote down his values. Some of you were in my workshop this morning, and we talked about the importance of having your values, what makes your clinic distinct and different and desirable. Ian spent the time writing them down. He called it our Vet for Life. Not his Vet for Life, but our Vet for Life, because the team all contributed to it. It was a list of values that they all agreed to operate by, and every new member of staff is recruited against. They share it with their clients. They share it with each other. They live by it every day. And he's recruited staff who share that passion with him. And it wasn't difficult to find them, because actually it's why people want to work in veterinary clinics. They want to help keep pets well. I spent years trying to find ways to motivate people who weren't really motivated by their work. You know, let's be honest, if your job is moving 5 tons of stuff from over there to over there, it's kind of tricky to find the motivation point. But in a vet's, it's never difficult. We're all here with a passion. And Ian just tapped into that passion. He's got no end of people want to work for his clinic. He has no shortage of staff. He's got a waiting list of people who want to come, because they want to be part of this thing. They want to be part of keeping pets well. Already, 50% of their income comes from wellness activities, but not at the expense of the illness activities. Because what you find is if you do the wellness well, you build trust with clients over time. You build trust when the decisions aren't big. But each time you make a decision with that client, they come to trust you more. So that when the big decisions arrive, we hope they don't, but sometimes they do, they already trust us. So actually they do more clinical work than they used to do in the past, because more clients say yes when they recommend doing it, because that bond of trust already exists. It's reinforced almost every day or every month or every week, how often that client comes in. So actually, this practice is growing at 20% a year. It's not growing its wellness at 20%. Well, it is, but it's growing its clinical at 20% too. They grow together. It's a harmonious model. But it's a different model. It takes time to communicate with clients. We can't afford to have vets spending that time. So your support staff become much more important in these clinics, which of course they want to be. The biggest complaint I get from support staff is their skills and experience isn't used because the vets keep taking it over. In this clinic, they don't. The vets are too busy. Other staff do all that stuff, and they love it because they're working at the top of their game, not the bottom of their game. They're doing stuff which for a vet almost seems beneath them, but for other members of staff, it's what we do. It's what we're proud of doing. They do it with so much more passion, so much more energy, so much more enthusiasm. You don't have to motivate them, they want to do it. So the question really is, do your clients want happy and healthy pets too? Well, almost certainly yes. We know the answer, it's why we're here. So the question is your clinic restricting itself to the pond of illness? Or can it see the potential of the big blue ocean of preventative healthcare? If we can provide everything our client needs to keep their pet well, and we can support the client through advice and guidance, then why don't they use our services? Because that's your challenge in your location, is what's stopping them doing it now. The first place to look is yourselves. Is it us? Are we making ourselves available and welcome to them? So, 3 principal reasons it doesn't happen. It's likely to be a focus on illness that comes through by how you look, how you feel, what you say, what you do. There's this perennial problem that clients don't follow our recommendations. That's what everyone tells us. We tell them, Mark, we tell them to do this stuff, they just don't do it. But as we said before the break, often clients mean to, but we don't put in place anything that enables them to. And sometimes we create financial barriers. We notice on the record that although they said a year ago they intended to come back for their flea and worming, they never actually made it. So we think, oh, we've got to have that message again. So the clients come in for a vaccination. They thought they knew what that cost, said on our board. Suddenly we point out that actually their flea protection's out of date, so they need this pack of flea protection. And actually, because they didn't come back last year, what we're going to do is give them all of it now, because that way we know they've got it. And, oh, they haven't had their worm protection, or they didn't come back for that. I know what, I'll suggest it all now. And suddenly there's this massive bill appears for their whole year's annual health care, and you just put it on the table in front of them. They didn't come in expecting to pay that. They thought it was his vaccination. The card said, come for the vaccination. But we've added it all to it. Anybody guilty of that? Does it sound familiar? Of course it sounds familiar. Okay? But we're discouraging them from coming back. Last time I went to the vets, it cost me twice what I thought it was going to do, 3 times what it thought I was going to do, whatever the answer is. We do it, don't we? We do it for the right reasons, but we do it. So understand that we don't always do the things that we need to do to make this happen. We need to change. So a focus on illness. We've invested in our training, the QIT, specialist support staff, and that creates and reinforces this perception that it's what we do. So we get through those. Why don't clients follow our advice? Well, they probably meant to. You know, there'll be the odd one that stands in front of you and barefaced lies when you say, you are going to do this, aren't you? But the vast majority meant yes when they said yes. They want to be good pet owners. They're not set out to be bad pet owners. You know, I don't meet them, people come in, well, I've got a cat, but I don't intend to look after it. It doesn't work that way, does it? You know, we've got a bit more faith in human nature. So we often know they intend to, but they forget. So what do? Sometimes they never really intended to, but they said they would. But really, that's quite rare. And of course, sometimes there's an affordability question. They didn't know it was going to cost them that much. They were naive pet owners. When the kids wanted a cat, it seemed like a good idea. Nobody told them how much it costs to look after a cat. It's all been a bit of a surprise for them as well. And we can do something about that. And of course, often we haven't yet convinced them of the value to them and their pet. We often talk about what they need to do, not what the benefits are of what we need to do. And it's the classic marketing. You have to talk about the benefits. Otherwise, it has no value. If something has no benefit, it has no value. So whatever price you're charging is too much. Because a fair price is when the price you're paying is less than the value you think you're getting. That's what makes a fair price. Sadly for the profession, and against the guidance of many of my compatriots that stand at the front of these things, a fair price isn't what it costs you plus a little percentage. That's not how it works. A fair price is when somebody gets something of a value they think is more than the price they paid for it. That's how it works. How much it costs you to deliver is nothing to do with them. That's your problem, not theirs. But we don't convince them, therefore, of the benefit of what we're asking them to do. So we know compliance rates are poor. There's been studies all over the world. Every time you see one, the answer is exactly the same. Okay, we're not good at it. Annual vaccinations. We know the take-up rate in many countries is quite low. We know the repeat rate is also quite low. It doesn't seem quite low because they say, oh, well, you know, it's 85%. But you take 85% times 85% times 85% times 85%. In 5 years' time, only a third of them are vaccinated. But it seems like a good percentage. Parasite Control, we know it tends to be the first one and they forget the rest. Oops. Elective procedures, neutering and dentistry, how many times do you recommend that and they don't come back? 9 out of 10? 19 out of 20? 99 out of 100? Depends where you are in the world. The answer is not, there won't be many. Oops, wrong way. And dietary recommendations. How many times have you spent time talking about an alternative diet? Perhaps even either given them the first trial bag or sold them a trial bag and never seen them again. We know that that's a problem too. And financial barriers arise, you know, when we try to sell everything in one visit. It's such a temptation. I know why we do it, but I see it happening time and time again. Recognize the damage you can do with it. We're doing it for what we think are the right reasons, but it's scary to clients. Ambushed is how they feel. We sometimes surprise clients with additional charges. We give them an indication of what it might cost, but we're afraid if we make it sound too expensive, they'll say no. So we I call it the 11th rule of management. Forgiveness is sometimes easier to get than permission. All right? If you're here with your boss, pretend you didn't hear that. But that's how we think, isn't it? That if we sort of say it'll be this, we sort of know it probably won't be. But at the end, when it's done and they've said yes, we'll sort of justify why it's turned out to be a little bit more than we said at the start. We're quite naughty like that, aren't we, boys and girls? Yeah, we are. Okay. And often we just fail to explain the value. And so the client doesn't perceive the value. One of the things that I always recommend when we're talking about value is always talk about what happens if you do nothing? And we forget to do that bit. Because we're our model, if you like, from our experiences, we've talked to these clients who are going to say yes, whatever you say. And we give them a choice and they pick one. But the other choice, which is do nothing, is always there for a client. If you haven't talked about it, it's also very attractive. It requires no money, no time, and no investment of emotional energy. Doing nothing. It's the attractive option. What happens if we do nothing? In our world, doing nothing usually makes it worse, doesn't it? There are some things, I know, which miraculously sort themselves out if we do nothing. But the reality is, in most cases, doing nothing causes us a future problem. It'll make it more expensive, more time-consuming, more emotionally absorbing than it is right now. But if you've not talked about that, why wouldn't the client pick it? For them, it's the option they wanted right at the start. If you've not talked about it, why wouldn't they pick it? Does that make sense? How many of you remember to talk about what happens if we do nothing? A few of you, but others are all nodding. You know what I mean. Never forget to talk about doing nothing. So, how have Vet for Life achieved their 50-50 split? Let me share it with you. They've developed what I call a preventative healthcare culture. Step one, it starts from the top. Leadership is really important because you're trying to change culture. So it has to come from the top. Ian, there it says the founder. Ian's passionate about keeping pets well. It's what motivates him as a vet. He's really good at the clinical stuff, and he's passionate about that, which is why his clinics are full of toys. Because he wants his vets to have that technology, but he also knows he has to be profitable to afford it. But he's actually passionate about keeping them well. He took the time to describe the values that drive his passion and got his staff to join in with those. So now it's shared, staff, clients, anybody else that's interested. He talks about having compassion and empathy in everything they do. I haven't shown the slides, but the little detail says what that means. So he gives examples for the staff and clients to understand what they mean by empathy, what we mean by compassion. We take care of the little but important details. And again, the next 4 lines give examples of what that means, so that staff are clear about what that means to them. We're highly qualified and experienced clinicians. They value each other. They value each other's contribution. They respect their shared knowledge. You know, we're a people-based business. It's all up here. And people and community matter to us. They're really embedded in their community. They organize community events in their area. They support community events when they take place. If something's happening in their part of South London, it turns out to be, they will be there in some shape or form. They want to be seen to be the vets that care. And they are. Once you've got your vision, you need to gather people around you that share it with you. So align the whole clinic team. So you recruit staff that share those values. That's the key requirement when we're looking for somebody. Do they share what our passion with us? And of course, this lot all do. You praise them whenever they do the values. If they demonstrate the values, you take the time to say, I noticed, thank you. What you did yesterday with Mrs. Smith and Tigger, that was brilliant. It's exactly what this practice is about. Thank you. He never misses an opportunity to reinforce that this is how we do it round here. Equally, occasionally there's little conversations that say, let's think about what happened yesterday. Did that meet our values? It's easy to manage if you've got a set of values that someone signed up to, because all you say to them is, what happened yesterday with Mrs. Smith and Tigger? Did that meet our values? Well, no, it didn't. Okay, why didn't it meet our values? This happened. What would we do differently next time? Okay, what help do you need from me to ensure that happens? Nothing, I've recognized it myself. It's easy to manage somebody when you've got something you've both agreed on in the first place. Step 3, ensure the values drive everything you do. People will see you walk the walk and talk the talk. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Okay, so it's no good you being at the top and saying, oh, yes, I'm doing all this. Look, I've written it down, Mark, I've done it. And then the very next day, your staff see you do something that doesn't align with your values. Which of the two are they following? Your example or your wise words? Your example. So you have to walk the walk and talk the talk and make sure everything now aligns to your values. So if you put it in there, you better mean it, because you're going to have to deliver it. And we talk about an organization. This is something called Norman's model. It's Norman with 2 N's. It's his surname. And what he's saying is that when we're a service business, and we are a service business, at our heart must be our culture and values. And then everything else has to align to it. So your culture and values dictate which clients come to you. Because we use the service provider that we're most comfortable with, the one that aligns with our values. If our emotional value is low and we just want budget vets, we'll find a budget vet. We'll find the cheapest one. If our emotional value is high and we want a vet that's going to bond with us emotionally, we'll look for that vet. If we care about wellness, we'll look for the vet whose values seem to reflect our values. So your culture and values do dictate which clients you get. They must dictate your image. Everything about you, all those touch points, your website, your Facebook page, your Instagram page, however you choose to do it, the front of your clinics, the inside of your clinics, how you look if you went around the back of your clinics, all of it must say the same message, that this is what our values are, and they imprint everything we do. And the way you do stuff, your protocols, your products or services, the rules you set for staff, all have to reflect that value set. We can't say one thing and do another. They must always be in harmony. And then ultimately, the way we deliver the service has to be what we said it would be. So if we said we're paying attention to the little things, we'd better pay attention to the little things. If we said how our clients feel is important to us, we'd better demonstrate that by the way we deliver it. That means we've got the right staff available at the right time, with the right training, with the right equipment, with the right facilities to deliver what we've promised. Clients leave us if we fail to deliver our promises. And if you make it clear what you're about, you better deliver it. Okay? You hide behind a blandness, you can get away with anything, but then you won't attract the clients you want. There's an old adage in business, you get the clients you deserve. And it's true. Eventually the clients sort you out. And then all of that has to sit in a harmonious value. And what you see in Vet for Life is a clinic where all of that sits together. The look, the feel, the staff, the motivation, the procedures, the protocols, the facilities, all of it sits together and quite clearly reflects that set of values about keeping pets well, but looking after them really well when they're ill too. Because that's their message. And that's how you make it work. So, the look and feel. Hello, welcome. The park look. Products and services, the family plan. They reflect the values. They underpin by agreed protocol, so we all do it the same way. We all answer the question the same way. You very rarely hear a member of staff in Vet for Life say, I'll need to check with the vet for that. If it's a routine question, they know what the answer is. Because we all answer it the same way, because it's the way we've agreed it's best. And every member of staff works hard to support those values. They feel they've let each other down if they don't. Managing and motivating them is actually very easy because they want to do this stuff. And then things like Vet for Life family. Part of Vet for Life family, you can come whenever your pet's ill. We've actually now kind of put in a rule that says if it's more than 12 times, we'll have a conversation about it, because they found a couple of clients that have been in 24 times in a year. Well, no pet's that ill. It became like an outing every second Wednesday, I think. But most clients just respect it, and they value the fact that there's no financial barrier to making that phone call. Pop on down, we'll sort it out. One of our nurses will have a chat with you and see if you're being a worry bag. If you're fussing over nothing, we'll tell you, but don't worry, come down. We'd rather check and find out. Don't worry about it. It makes such a difference in creating that feel about the practice. So an annual wellness plan, paying monthly, includes a 6 monthly check, vaccinations, all the usual stuff. But most importantly, illness consultations, as I think the Banfield plan does in America. And of course, it links to other services, so we can give our plan members something special. We have a plan newsletter, so they get a different level of communication. They have events that they only invite plan members to, so they start to feel special about their role. They've made that commitment to their pet, and the practice shares that with them because they have. And then everything else, the service delivery, reflects those values, and the staff are part of developing those processes, how we do things, how we undertake a bitch spay, how we do the routine services, which anaesthetic protocols to be used, which recovery protocols to be used. We decide collectively what the best way is, and then everybody does it. And performance is measured. You know, we have difficult conversations in the practice from time to time. So client satisfaction surveys tell them, are we actually doing for our clients what we think we're doing? They do mystery shopping. You know, do we answer the phone the way we expect to answer the phone? And then get a report every month about it. Staff are reviewed regularly. So there's a constant dialogue going on of how do we make ourselves better? How do we deliver this promise all the way through? And there are improvement targets. You know, budgets are set. I'm not working with Ian anymore because he's part of a bigger group, but he's already been on the phone. He wants his budgets for next year. And I've got the model. But anyway, we'll make it work. But he knows how important that is, because if you set a target, you can ask yourself the question, how have we done? And whether you've beaten the target, met the target, or not met the target, you've learned something, haven't you? So the next question is, what do we learn? How do we change what we do to put that learning into effect? The organisation's constantly striving to do a better job of what it does. And the customers eventually gets the ones who share the values, and they're engaged with, they participate in the community, quarterly news, social media feed, providing that personal service. So, are you sat restricted in the pond of illness? Or can you see the potential of the big blue ocean of preventative healthcare? Your choice. Thank you.